Greetings guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette and this is my channel Evolve with Monette. So happy to share some energy with you today. We are going to jump right into the video. For those of you that are new here, I am a professional intuitive empath and I have been examining all manner of relationship dynamics. I had a client download today, and that usually happens when I speak with clients, and then there's something that my angels say, write this down and teach about it. And they were trying to disseminate whether or not their relationship was normal. So I wanted to go over, we do love a list here on YouTube, 5 quick tips and 7 quick tips. Well, today we have 7 toxic relationship habits that seem perfectly normal. A lot of us, I've realized over the last few years as I've been working with clients regarding primarily relationships, because that is my specialty, is love and relationships, right? So ironically, you guys have seen me go through the trenches in the last year regarding a relationship, and I'm on the other side of it, thank God. And that's why I'm wearing green for healing. This is associated with heart chakra. Tonight, the work that I do in the videos I make are all centered in my angels directed. They pick out my outfits, y'all, and tell me what to do. And I do love them. I have my own special stylist team from Jesus. But I wanted to identify this because a lot of us have really toxic ideas of what a relationship is. And then we kind of use this as a marker for what our relationship should be. And then some of us, if we don't feel like that our relationship is these things, will create and stir up this kind of toxicity. So I wanted to kind of talk about this. 1, expecting your partner, got a little list here, so let's see. Expecting your partner to fix anything regarding emotional distress. So they want you here to be honest about the times you've been in a fight without your partner, and about your partner not being there for you in a tough time or being sympathetic enough about your bad day. Have you started to build up resentment? If there wasn't enough emotional needs being met. And so while it's important to seek support, and I have a video up here about how to support a friend without being overbearing or without triggering yourself, because sometimes supporting a friend in pain can be triggering to you. We want to honor that space for what people too. But what I'm saying here is that it's important to do it, but there's a big difference between being supportive and being emotionally obligated. You should be adding to each other's lives without feeling like either of you depend on each other. As I extracted myself from my relationship, I realized just how the depth of the codependency, and so it's something that I really actively worked on, and that may be something that works for you too. So what you should be doing to counter this, you should be able to turn to your partner and ask, this feels hard to do alone, can you help me get through this? But the key word is ask. Vocalize how you'd like your partner to show up for you and how you're feeling without expecting or relying on them to fix anything, and then take responsibility for your own emotions without expecting them to hold any responsibility for your happiness. So a lot of times we just expect that if we're in a partnership that they may have all the answers. Here's what I've learned about partnerships, because you guys hear me talk about I have a husband, I had a best friend, all that stuff, and I have new energy in my life now. And the thing about it is that multiple relationships serve different functions. So my husband, the reason that I am adamant about having female friendship is not a function of my sexuality or anything else. It is a function of my emotional connectivity. I am very clear that my husband is my life partner. Got it, right? Until he is or isn't, right? God, we have many variables and many outlets, but I'm pretty sure we're going to keep each other for right now. But what I will say is that I've always been clear about that prior to him being my husband. I've understood that your man may not be your best friend, or your woman if you are in a same-sex relationship, or your man if you are in a same-sex relationship may not be your best friend. We idealize that that is what should happen, but this is why God gave us a multiplicity of connections and friendships. So I know that I never am going to extract the kind of emotional connectivity that I need from my husband. I also know that my husband loves me and he respects me, and he'll listen to me and offer his man solutions. If any of you guys have ever dated any human in your life, you know what it is. But I found that emotionally, if I needed a thing, that there may be a friend that I could outsource to. So one person in your relationship shouldn't be carrying the full weight for you, okay? I think it's very healthy to kind of disperse energetically the way that you get your needs met without it turning toxic. Another video, another time. 2, making fairness and balance in the relationship a priority. You know, these 2 things sound like really admirable qualities. But sometimes it can turn into keeping score. So if you find yourself mentally counting or computing the effort your partner is putting in, how it relates to the effort you're putting in, or if you're retaliating to hurt feelings by bringing up past arguments, and this could be a sign that one or both of you are more focused on keeping score than keeping the relationship happy. Your relationship should not include a scorecard that tallies up who has screwed up the most or who owes one more. Guys, in the last year, you guys have seen me disseminate a toxic friendship in my life. The reason that I was able to go through my scorecard, and I'm not just trying to justify it here, is because I had severed ties in the relationship, and she had done such irreparable damage that I knew that we were not going to be returning back to each other. We were both not using our throat chakras accurately. There was passive aggression on her side. There was me trying to do my empath, like mend it, fix it, no, don't rock the boat. And I should have just addressed her completely and been my full authentic self. So that's where I went wrong, because I was living in this place of like, I didn't even know we were keeping score. There's a funny skit, I'll see if I can connect it below. It's a Real Housewives of Hollywood. It's a cipher they did many years ago with Kevin Hart and Nick Cannon and Nelly and a few other people. And there's one part where Nick Cannon, it's supposed to be like a fun, friendly thing, but there's one part where Nick Cannon literally annihilates all of them verbally, and Kevin Hart puts his hands on his hip and kind of backs away. He's like, oh, I thought we were together. I didn't realize that it was like we were going to fight each other. Sometimes in a partnership, that competition of tallying and stuff like that can get really toxic, so be careful. Here's how you fix it. Instead, know that relationships have to be fair in order to be good. If you live together, you reevaluate your chore chart. It doesn't have to be equal, like I cook so you do the dishes, or I took the dog walk for yesterday so you have to do it today. Instead, offer to do the chores your partner doesn't really like to do or that you don't mind, and vice versa. And think about what makes sense for both of you and your lifestyles, not what is equal, and treat every problem or disagreement like it's brand new without bringing up the past issues. This is so much easier said than done. As I was reading through and collecting notes on how to manage toxic relationships or the things that we might be doing that's toxic, I was like, y'all, we are not, none of us are saints here, and one of us is gonna, get pissy about something and say something, and it's not gonna be fair and whatever else. So I'm not asking you guys to be angels. That's great advice from, someone who's like, this is what you should do. But I will say the part that makes sense for me is about the chores specifically. My husband and I figured that out. What he liked to do, what I like to do, what I didn't trust him to do. Amen. Ladies, can you relate? What I knew that I should be doing or what I was more comfortable doing. So we figured that out and fell it very naturally into a homeostasis regarding our housework. That's me. I was lucky. That's not everybody's dynamic, right? So make a different switch there. Number 3, thinking your part, y'all, as Honey Boo Boo says, y'all better redneckinize, thinking of your partner as your second half. Third toxic mistake. Come on, Jerry Maguire. Didn't Renee Zellweger do a whole loop-de-loo on our souls? Back to that, you complete me load of crap. No one, and I mean no one, can live a fulfilled life with the belief that they need someone else to make them whole. This mentally can lead to toxic dynamics like codependency, which I am a recovering codependent, insecurity, and controlling behavior. In the past relationship that I extricated myself from, they were incredibly controlling and codependent too. They were very controlling. I was codependent. I was enabling. They were controlling. You see, that's always the kind of volley that will happen. And it's because we were very like, you're my only person. Me and you shall never part. But the thing about it is that the codependency that I started to heal, she just kind of looped over into another connection and didn't heal anything. I watched it happen. Some of you guys may have seen that happen, but I was really getting aware oh, I am codependent in the last 7 to 8 years of that relationship, and she's not the only person in the world, and she's not my only friend, and I have partners, and I have other people around me, and whatever. So I started to realize that and wake up, and that may be something that you need to do too. So what you need to do instead is look at your partner as someone who can enrich and add to your already complete life. Focus on yourself more often than you focus on the relationship, and seek out what makes you happy. Then get ready to share your joy with your significant other. I have a bunch of hobbies that my husband could care less about. My husband also has assimilated quite the spiritual side, which has been lovely to watch happen over the years, because believe you me, we did not start out that way. I remember doing gratitude jars with him as we were walking into some new blessings a couple of years ago, and I was very familiar with the concept, and vision boards, gratitude jars, all that stuff, gratitude journals. And so I gave him his scrap of paper as we were sitting in bed at night, and I was like, babe, write down 3 things that you're grateful for and put a date on them, because I like to go through the jars and pick them out and see what we've created. Well, what adorable. What he wrote down the first time was, I'm grateful for chips. I'm grateful for chips. And I remember that note. I will see if I can find it. It delighted and tickled me. But I was like, ooh, Houston, we got a long way to go. We don't just have a problem. We have a long way to go. The thing about it is I shared my joy about my spirituality with my partner by just living it. I have my own hobbies. I have my own things. I have my own interests. I go for drives by myself to the lake or to the beach. Sometimes he comes with me. But I did not stop being me to be in a relationship with someone who didn't understand how I operated or grounded myself. That was part of my thing. I shared it with him, and now he partakes sometimes, and it's really nice. And he does it authentically because he has a genuine interest, because I didn't force it on him, and I didn't say, we have to do everything together, because I could have cared less. He doesn't like to travel, guys. Guess what? Mama gets on a plane every time Jesus will let me, okay? You know, you don't have to be attached at the hip. And that doesn't mean I don't love him and that I don't love coming home to him. It means that I was not going to forfeit my likes and desires to gratify him. And trust me, he's a homebody. He would love it if I stayed home, okay? What I will say here, too, is that speaks to codependency and enmeshment. We've all seen those girls who become their partner, or those guys who become their partner, and it's really creepy. They just, like, assimilate all the traits. They like baseball, so you do. Yes, you want to have things in common, and I have another video up here where I talked about my best breakup ever with a woman that I dated who was a Unitarian pastor, and she was a member of the Audubon. She loved bird watching, and she definitely Audubon Society, and she wanted me to come with her, and I went with her, but I wasn't really interested in it, and I wasn't going to assimilate and be like, this is so magical, a yellow-billed gully bull, whatever. But she loved that. And guess what she did? We dealt with it. We realized, oh, this is not a compatibility we have. And that was okay. We continued to date until we went our separate ways. But I wasn't going to pretend that I liked something that I just didn't have an interest in, even though I would attend with her sometimes. You get it? So that's the thing. You can't become an enmeshed part of your partner. Speaking in absolutes is number 4. Instead of saying what you said wasn't nice and it hurt my feelings, maybe you could say, I've never been with... Instead of saying what you said was nice and it hurt my feelings, you might find yourself saying, I could never be with someone who says such awful things. That's a fatalistic absolute. Instead of your reaction to what was said, what I said made me feel unheard, you say, I deserve someone who listens to me and cares about my feelings. So does that sound familiar? You're speaking in absolutes, guys, and creating expectations for the relationship based on your own ideas that actually have nothing to do with your partner in general. Stop relating with your significant other or your sister or your brother or your friend or your mother or your lover. Stop. This is hilarious. Wow, speaking of good communication, that's an omen here with a Taurus just dropping in and kind of sending me a message. My first high school boyfriend, who we had brilliant communication, just reached out. So I will be talking to him later. And guys, don't worry, he's gay, so you know. We figured all of our stuff out eventually, didn't we? So you must want to chat. Here's what I will tell you guys, though, is about that, is he and I actually used to speak to each other like this with all these feeling psychological words, and it's probably the reason that this many years later, we are still friends after high school, okay? So what you can do instead is to focus solely on the problem at hand. Don't generalize your partner's actions and vocalize why they hurt you in that moment, rather than why you don't accept them as a worthy enough partner. So that's really something to be careful about. I had a situation recently with a sibling where I was putting boundaries down about what I was comfortable doing, and she felt a way about it, and she was reactionary. And instead of doing what we normally do, because I practice what I preach, guys, instead of creating a kicked up fuss with her and being like, oh, well, I'm never going to talk to you and you're never going to talk to me, I had that kind of speech with her, and I connected and I said, it's interesting that you excluded me from this thing, the only thing that I wanted to participate in the things that you had kind of suggested. And I said, it feels reactionary to me, sis. It does. And I said to her, she's my older sister, and I said, it feels reactionary to me. And I said, but I trust the wisdom of my older sister. And I said, the universe's or God's work at hand here, right? And I said, so if you say that I am out, then I am out. Now, That's not something we all grow up to do. This has taken me many years to get into that frame. And this is a sister that I've met in my adult life. I knew her as a kid, but we spent much time away from each other. And then we reconnected as adults many years ago, okay, in my adulthood. So this is not someone that I was rolling around with in the house and sharing makeup with and all that stuff, right? So we're learning each other now as adult women. And I had a boundary, and I didn't like something, and it doesn't mean I didn't like her. But instead of doing the fatalistic absolute talk of like, well, this pissed me off and I'm out of here and I'm never going to talk to you again and it makes me no, never mind. No, 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 no. I love this sister. I adore her, in fact. But I needed her to respect me just as I would respect her. And I pushed back. And then she countered me brilliantly and walked through and was like, no, I just didn't want you to feel uncomfortable, and this is how I feel, and I totally get it, and you're back in, okay, it's fine, whatever. This is my older sister. But you see what I did? Instead of being incendiary and throwing gas on it and being like, I can't believe she excluded me, I called her out, because that's part of my path here. That's my ministry, y'all. I call people out. People call me out all the time, but I call people out. And I said to her, sweet pea of a sister that I adore. That felt reactionary. What was that for? And you're going to have to own that. I don't really let people get away with stuff with me at all anymore because I spent a lot of years doing that. Empaths, can you relate? But you see the difference between pouring gas on it and making it fatalistic? Because I could have severed a relationship out of my own pride or injury because she'd excluded me. Who wants to be excluded? But she didn't really want to exclude me. She felt triggered by me setting boundaries because we're learning each other and she wasn't used to that. Didn't mean that either of us were good or bad. It just meant that we needed to communicate more effectively, and we did. And I'll be seeing her in 24 hours, okay? So anyway, guys, that's a good example. 5, the number, intense conflict. Oh God, this is the reason that I even made this video. We think that in relationships that intense conflict means passion. We have all laughed and cried and loved and ate a pint of Ben & Jerry's while watching an iconic rom-dram, The Notebook, which is one of my favorite movies, complete with screaming matches that turn into passionate sex scenes. And I might put the YouTube clip below. But passion that results in consistent fights or screaming matches off screen are always rooted in deeper problems like immaturity, difficulties with communication, or even traits of relationship abuse like narcissism or control. No matter how good the makeup sex is, regardless of what causes consistent fighting, it makes for an unstable relationship, resulting in an eventual burnout. You can only do that so many times before you're sick of it, guys, all right? And so the truth is that love should feel gentle. You should be more consistent in your relationship than you are up and down. You should feel more content than heated or angry. What to do instead? Rewire the way the two of you deal with problems. Think of the issues as the two of you against a problem instead of the two of you against each other. Also focus on your partner's emotions rather than their words. Although this limits the ability to get caught up when something is said out of anger and frustration. Start expressing gratitude for the traits about your relationship and your partner that have nothing to do with passion at all. Their kindness, how they're there for you, how you two share some of the same interests. See above. If your relationship still seems to have more passion and conflict than feelings of safety and security and selfless support, just be warned that this passion is not enough to feel fulfilled for a lifetime and will never be sustainable. Message. That's really why I did this video. That one, I was like, this one is a good one, because how many of us have not had toxic relationships? I've talked about it on here before, loving that movie Sleeping with the Enemy and thinking like that's what relationships feel like. Well, for me, I grew up with a narcissistic, malignant narcissist father who was physically, emotionally, energetically, and always abusive. And so I remember one scene specifically, my mother trying to escape and leave him. She left him all the time. So there was always that adrenaline run, right? And one time when she left him, I think finally for good, she had called a cab and a little petite woman was driving the cab. And he arrived at the same time that we were leaving and pulling away from the house. And he literally reached in and pulled out the woman out through the window because she was driving away. And he had a gun. And I remember sitting in the back. It was a VW Bug. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is what love is like. Isn't that crazy? In my little kid brain, I had already decided that this level of intensity must be what love is like. Nay, nay. And so what I did, and what many of us do, is I replicated that in relationships, toxic, abusive dynamics, emotionally or physically abusive dynamics, until I started to get healthy. And I realized, especially in the last 15 years. There were two people that I dated that were significant, a soulmate named Jan and my husband, that taught me like, oh, relationships with people can be stable and steady, and we don't really fight, and communication happens, and we fix things, and it's not terrible. Doesn't mean we never fight all the time, but what it means is that, or that he can't be a jerk, because amen, can't husbands be, and can't we be beaches? Okay, we certainly can be. But what I realized was that I was more happy with him than I was in drama. I had other relationships that were toxic, that were all drama, and other people that opine, narcissists specifically, that our relationships seem to be boring because they associate passion with pleasure, and this they think is a fun and exciting relationship. In the dynamic where I separated from a friend, the reason that she chose something more exciting is because she found me to be boring, because I had really started to heal and she had healed nothing, and so she went to someone who she could scream and fight and fuck and do all the things, excuse my language y'all, but we got to call a thing, and that mattered to her way more than a safety net of a friendship where you can trust that the person's going to show up for you day to day, right? She loved the dramatic way. So she had some things to heal. Some of you guys may have some things to heal, and some of us watching have done the healing, right? And we're on to better and on to more stable, okay? Better is relative, right? Because for her, that was better, yeah? Dropping hints. So maybe you've accidentally left the browser page up of a certain pair of earrings you're dying for, or borrowed their laptop. If you can't openly communicate your feelings or desires, whether it's, I wish you complimented me more, or I would like to try something new in bed, it shows in your communication that it needs some work, and there are some weak spots. There's no reason that you would be passive aggressive if you felt like your feelings would be taken with respect and non-judgment. So what to do instead? I live by this, guys. When I say I practice what I preach, be upfront and open about your feelings, desires, and needs. Never lead with false hopes that your partner will be able to assume what you want, and value open communication in a relationship. Make it clear that your partner is not obligated to fulfill your needs. Rather, you'd be appreciating their effort and support. Don't be judgmental, unreceptive, or dismissive with anything they communicate to you. This is something I work with clients all the time regarding sex therapy. And again, guys, I am not actually a sex therapist, but I find myself working in this capacity energetically, because sometimes my husband will walk by my office space while I'm working with clients, and like his eyes like booga, because we listen. I don't know why men don't realize we girls know how to get down and dirty. So I will be having a straight up, candid, very explicit conversation, not phone sex, guys, but conversation, counseling someone through something going on in their marriage. Both men and women contact me and communicate with me about their deep sexual issues, fantasies, and desires that they want to convey. How can I talk to my partner? They're not talking to me about it so we can go play. They're talking to me about it because they can say what they need to say to me, because they know that I'm receptive. So I try to practice what I preach. If I like something, if I don't like something, when I've been attracted to people, when I'm no longer interested, even the example I gave above regarding my interaction with my sibling, my sister, I am very forthright now. It's taken years to get here. Again, it took a while, but I'm very forthright now, because I'm like, if we can't talk about this, if I can't tell my husband something I would like in bed, then what am I married to my husband for? Okay. Funny example that I was just talking about, that first boyfriend, y'all, we're going to let it all hang out talking about good communication. We were both figuring out our sexualities. Okay. And one of the things that happened was, and this is a story that we've talked about and laughed at. I was like, you know, I'm gonna put this in a book someday because it's hilarious. He's like, you should. So I do have his permission, no worries. But he was figuring out his sexuality. We were dating. He was my high school boyfriend, and he was like curious about guys. He was bisexual, bi-curious. He didn't know what he was. He's actually figured it out now. He is gay. But what I will tell you is this: I was dating him and best friends with a guy who was out of the closet and openly gay. And I know this is going to be unconventional, so guys, please understand I'm very liberal here, and I'm part of the LGBTQ community. But what I will tell you is, yes, I have a husband. I'm bisexual, just to be clear, for those of you guys that don't know. But I was like, you know, I can't do this thing for you that you're curious about, so maybe my best friend can. Does that sound insane? Maybe to many of you listening it does. But what I respected was that he used his throat chakra and he communicated to me. And he didn't say he was interested in my best friend. So it wasn't like I want to hook up with him. It was very much us just having conversations about what we liked or what we were thinking or whatever. Because we were having at that age these kind of conversations. We were older high schoolers, okay? But still, you know, as wild as a Taliban, I'm not going to lie. Now that I look back and I'm like, oh, the liberty and the freedom of growing up in the time we did. However, I set them up, literally set them up so that he could figure out what that was about, because he expressed to me that he had a desire. If any of you guys watch the Savage podcast with Dan Savage, he talks about love and sexuality in all manner of ways, and we all make our own rules, and there were no rules for us then. My boyfriend still was my boyfriend for another year until we went our separate ways or moved or whatever happened, and my best friend and him, I'm not going to hold you, they hooked up. And I sat in my best friend's Thunderbird, I'll never forget it, while they hooked up, and he figured out if that was a flavor he liked. Apparently he did. Not with him though, but he did. And then my best friend came downstairs and drove me home. We rode around the town as one does in a small town, drove me home and picked me up the next day to go to school, because that is what happened. Nothing went left, and I was still dating that guy, and they didn't end up falling into anybody's love, and I wasn't worried about that. He had a need. That's the kind of partner I always have strived to be. I'm not saying that that is a bridge that might be too far for some of you, but I was very comfortable with it because I knew my sexuality as well. So I was like, you know, I get it. I don't know. I'm pretty easygoing regarding like sexual fluidity and stuff like that. So that's why maybe my customers do. It's feedback that they give, feel comfortable talking about it. But you need to be able to talk to your partner about that. There are so many people I counsel that are not safe or don't feel safe or comfortable to just be like, babe, this is kind of a thing I'm into. And I'm not saying that's an extreme case and we were young and no one was, you know, in deep, long-standing relationships. But it definitely was something that made me think as I got older. I thought, oh, I was really born to do this, because I have no problem being like left, right, up, down, yes, no, maybe not tomorrow, okay? So that is going to be important for you to do. Finally, 7. Ooh. Believing in the idea that one person and only one person is your Prince Charming, or the idea of one soulmate. Yes, soulmates exist. Yes, twin flames exist. Yes, yes, yes. I cannot have a channel like this and disparage that emotional institution. But what I will say is there are many. And I've always been of this belief. I told you I had one named Jan when I was in my 20s to early 30s, or one named Mom when I was in my mid 20s to early 30s, who made such a significant mark on me. There's never a bad video I would make about him or anything that I'd have to say, because he helped me grow and flourish in such a beautiful way. And I've always known that I'd have many. I would definitely say that my husband is a soulmate. Some of the best friends that I've had have been soulmates or twin flame energies for me. I'm very clear about it. Everybody is not always so clear about that. That's another thing. Sometimes that can be something that causes a scare because it's an intense connection. But with Jan, I will say the reason I speak of it is because I didn't imagine he was the only one. And he, loving me as a good soulmate will do, said you're going to be around a lot of people, and a lot of people will get to know you and get to love you, maybe in the same way I do, maybe not as intimately, but definitely they will get to know and love you. He wished and spoke over me life. A good soulmate will do that. They will not cause you strife. And even though we are not together, we still speak every single year, because when you have a soulmate like that, they don't kind of like create like friction and fear. Some karmic soulmates do, but this one was really, really good to me. And I was very clear in my own downloads from my angels that there will be many soulmates in my life. That I think that sometimes even the number that came up to me was that you might get up to 5. So I've definitely had a few, and that could be a soulmate, could be a sibling. I definitely feel like my sister is like, we were meant to, I love that girl. I love that woman. Let me say, I love her so much. And, she's a soulmate of sorts. She helped me. She shaped me. That's what soulmates will do. Just don't get stuck. Instead, think of commitment as a choice rather than a destiny, okay? Instead of asking yourself if this person you're with is perfect, ask whether or not you would want your children to be exactly like them. It will help distinguish this difference between settling and being overcritical. Finally, complete yourself first. So that you complete me, screw that. That's BS. Then if you happen to find someone who is compatible with the version of you that you love, it is more romantic than passionate fights or happily ever afters could ever be. Y'all, that's a whole vibe in a word. We're running long, so I'm going to wrap this up in the next minute here at 30. I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm feeling super juicy and super loved. by life partners and soulmates and friends that just chimed in above. I would even dare say that that friend of mine that called in is a soulmate for sure. He's traveled with me through this life, and we have the deepest conversations I've ever had with anybody. I adore him and his husband. I've got to spend some time with both of them. What I will say here is that I really have been on a journey of self-healing, hence the green, like I said, over the last couple of years. And what matriculated in is a new energy that could be a soulmate or a twin flame or whatever you want to, whatever moniker you want to assign, someone who is literally assigned to me. But she's met this version of me. There will be nobody that sees the more extra codependent monad or whatever. That doesn't mean that I don't have tendencies or moments, right? But I check myself and I articulate with her. I'm working on, if she offers help for something else that you know, I struggle with codependency. So what I'm going to do is try to figure this out first. But thank you so much for the feedback or whatever. That's not something I would have done before. It would have just been like, yes, whatever. You're the best and whatever. And I can be idealistic that way, but I do realize that I had some healing to do so that I could even listen to what any soulmate, twin flame, or life partner had to say. I did not want to be swayed. If you don't love yourself and you haven't done your healing, you will allow yourself to be swayed by what someone else is feeling. And those are the 7 toxic traits that we kind of have done and not given too much thought to. Maybe apply it to you and your boo or your friend or your family or your whoever. And come back and join me next time as we continue to evolve together.